Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. We never get to look at my Disas. We looked at them a lot last year when I brought them home in bloom, and the blooms lasted absolutely ages on this particular one. Unfortunately, they're all the same plant. These are all Disa Orchids, which does have attractive blooms, don't get me wrong, but I bought a community pot full and I paid, quite honestly, very little money for it in bloom. So I was over the moon with that, and I'm hoping to get some more variety and get a few more during this year somehow. I'm working on it. But when I split that community pot up, there were plants of many sizes, including some quite large ones. So I picked on 3 of the best ones and potted them separately. They've decided to push up some new growths round the side, which are subsequent year's bloomers. But in theory, these 3 are blooming size and with the right conditions should bloom. The next size got put in this pot, and it's possible that even 1 or 2 of those might bloom, but if not, they will the following year. And then the little ones that were left I stuck in another community pot to bring on. Highly unlikely those will bloom this year. They may next year. But yeah, I've just got those out. I haven't given these a good look over, because all I do is top the tray up. I don't need to get the plant off the shelf to top the tray up. I can just pour water in, which is what I've just done. And then what I do is I wait 10-15 minutes to see how much of that water's disappeared. And if it's all gone, they'll get another lot. Because quite honestly, when these are actively growing in their growing season, they can stand in water. They are totally different to other types of orchids. They like their feet wet and they like their feet cool. Well, I can't necessarily do the cool thing, but I can certainly do the wet thing and keep them growing on. And they must never dry out. So, yep, this time of year they're pushing new leaves all over the place. Yeah, many. So they're actively growing. At the same time, they'll be producing new roots, new growths, ready for future blooms. And we'll see what we can do with them. But I need to get them in that bright light, so they're going to get shoved along there, with the ones that are most likely to bloom nearest the glass, followed by the next ones, and then the community pot sat behind, just to grow on, basically. I'm not trying to get these to bloom, just to grow. So we'll see what happens with them. But yeah, they're not forgotten. I mean, these are some of my favourite blooms, and certainly when you get into the yellows, the oranges and the reds, they are stunning. You see a display of these at a show and it's a crowd puller. People will gather round because they are unusual in shape and brilliantly coloured. There are pastel shades as well, but I'll be after some ones that produce multi-blooms on their spikes. Preferably with reasonable sized blooms. There's some lovely deep yellow ones with red spots, red markings. There's bright orange ones with yellow bits on. There's red ones with orange, red ones with yellow. And it's just a matter of the guy that I got these from, it was his last pot at Malvern. I was talking to one of my Orchid Society's guys who grows Disas about Disas, saying I'd love to get some and give them a try. And he said, oh, this guy over here's got some. And when we got round there, the sum had become 1, because he'd got rid of all of them bar 1 pot. So I grabbed that straight away. Mine. But I'm hoping to contact him and see if he's got any more that he's planning on bringing to Malvern. I'll try and get there and grab them before the show actually opens, or get the guy from my Orchid Society to do it for me, because he's going to be there anyway, because he's on the show committee. So he'll be there a couple of days before the show opens to set up our display. So one way or another I should be able to get at these, if he's got any to bring. But there is a UK nursery that specialises in Disas. I may have to resort to using that guy. He won't send them in bloom, so that's the summer out. He won't send them in the winter, and he only really posts in spring and autumn. So you'd be buying hopefully sort of things like this, but I wouldn't be able to see them, and I always like to see my plants. If the guy from the Orchid Society gets the pot full from the guy from last year, I will trust him emphatically, quite honestly, to make sure that he's buying some reasonable plants for me. And I'll trust him to do that. That won't be a problem. But better still is to do it myself. But yeah, I'm hoping to get more. They are finicky. When you repot these, they're so fragile. You've only got to look at the roots and they snap. So they're delicate to repot, and once a plant has reached blooming size and bloomed, it will die. That's just their life cycle. That particular plant will die, and it will die back, reabsorb the nutrients, but unfortunately the sort of little bulb or stolon or whatever you call it that the plant grew out of also dies. Now in the meantime it will have produced lots of little plantlets all round the edge, but if you leave that main stolon in the pot, it will die back and rot, and it can take out the plants that are attached to it. So it's the sort of thing where once they've bloomed that autumn, they should be repotted to get those old stolons out, break the little plantlets off carefully and pot them on, ready to get blooms in subsequent years. So they do have a predictable pattern, but it's a pattern that you've sort of got to stick to or you can cause problems. So as I said, these all got repotted in the autumn last year at the right time. They seem to have taken off nicely, so that worked. And I'll only need to repot these if they bloom. So if none of these bloom, they can stay where they are for another year, and then they will definitely bloom the following year. But I'm hoping to get some blooms this year. So that's my Disas. They like good light. They prefer to stay cooler, and as I said, they like cold feet, and that's difficult to achieve. They also like wet feet. That's easy to achieve. So you know, I think Rachel actually sticks hers out in the garden during the summer. So they get there in the sun, and she just makes sure they're standing in water, and they do great. You know, so they're not difficult, they're just a bit different. Well, actually, they're a lot different, but you know, if you know the differences and how to handle it, they're not difficult. So, yeah, once you get past the really cold spells, away from the freezing points, these can live out in the garden in the UK. Personally, if I put mine out in the garden, I don't think I'd leave them in the full sun right throughout the day. I'd probably put them in the place where they got like either morning sun or evening sun, but not all day, especially that burning midday sun. But where they grow, they take it. You know, this is South Africa, but where they grow, it's quite high up. So that's the difference. It's not the burning heat that we might get, if we're lucky, in the middle of the summer in the UK. So that's my Disas, and progress is going on. They're growing. They're pushing out a lot of new leaves since they were potted up. You probably might be able to find the video if you go back to whenever I did it, probably October, maybe November last year. You can probably see me delicately trying to tease them out of their pots and separate them and pot them up. Worried me to death. I think that's one of the most worrying repots I've ever had to do, because they are incredibly fragile when they're out of their pot. Roots can break just by looking at them. But we've got them to grow, that's the main thing. That's phase 1, phase 2, now let's get some blooms. And then I'll be happy. But I'll be happier if I can get some more with different colours. So we'll work on that. See you next time.